85 and 304. What do those numbers mean? It is our annual Ducks season by the numbers on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for over a decade, and today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. The mobile twist on classic Monopoly is a hit, so join your friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store or Google Play today. I've been covering minor league hockey for over a decade. I've been covering hockey for over a decade. I've been the host of Locked On Anaheim Ducks for the past 5+ years. And I'm also a contributor to Defend the Nest, which covers the San Diego Gulls, and also currently the public address announcer for the Coachella Valley Firebirds, who are still in the playoffs. So that gives me a little bit of something. But right now, we're not going to talk about minor league hockey. No, we're going to talk all about the Anaheim Ducks. And this is an episode that I do every year. It is a season by the numbers, or rather the Ducks season by the numbers. And here's how this works. I give a slew of numbers relating to the past 82 games for the Anaheim Ducks. Now, I will say it's not as bad as last year. If you go back to last year's season by the numbers, it was pretty ugly. Okay, it was not pretty ugly. It was really ugly. This year, at least, there's some positive movement. There's some reason for hope for next season. Of course, that's me being a little bit optimistic. I'll admit I can be very optimistic, but I'm also going to try to keep it as honest as possible because I'm not going to deny it. This Ducks team still wasn't good. It wasn't as bad as last year, but it still wasn't good. That being said, Greg Cronin's first year with the Anaheim Ducks didn't go as well as expected, but there was some reason for that, which I will get to a little bit later. But let's start going through some of these numbers, and I've got a lot of them, folks. So we're going to start with 59, which is the standings points this season. Hey, you know what? That's 1 point better than last season, and not in last. Yeah, I know. Let me be a little positive about this. The Ducks were not in last place this year. No, they were merely 30th in the league this year. 59 points is an improvement. They weren't as bad as the Chicago Blackhawks. They were not as bad as the San Jose Sharks. So there's some positive to take out of this, right? Yeah, some positive. So 59, we'll go with that number. We'll also go with this number. This one I'm kind of not a fan of. 12. Okay, what does 12 have to do with the Ducks season? That's the number of home wins this season. That's out of 41 games at the Ponda. The Ducks were better on the road this season. Maybe they'd be better at home if they had an escalator. Anyway, the escalator-less Honda Center only saw 12 home wins this season. That's the lowest in the National Hockey League. They were better on the road this season. They had 15 wins on the road. And with those 12 home wins, they wound up with 27 points at home. That is the worst in the league. Again, maybe if the Pond installed some escalators, I'm partially kidding. They really should. Pretty much almost every other arena has escalators. I'm just saying. Anyway, let's go with our next number. 2. What does 2 have to do with the Ducks? That's the longest winning streak the Ducks had after November 5th. Okay, why from that particular date? Well, because that was the day after they had won 6 games in a row towards the start of the season. Remember that little 6-game winning streak they had beginning of the season? Remember when there was a little bit of hope? I know I didn't cover the Ducks a whole lot at that time because I was in the middle of, moving here. I was in the middle of that, so I didn't get to really cover the winning streak. Yeah, it was all downhill after that 6-game winning streak. The longest streak they had was 2 once again, and it was as bad as it seems. They had losing streaks of 6, 7, 8. On the bright side, at least the Ducks didn't have a double-digit losing streak this year. So, hallelujah, that's progress, right? How about this one? Take this one on for size. -91. The goal differential wasn't as bad as the -129 last season, and definitely not last in the NHL this season, thank goodness. Is it much better? Well, it's 38 goals better than last season, so that's positive progress. How about this number? 2666. Oh, there's that evil number. 2,666. That's the number of shots allowed by the Ducks, which doesn't seem like a lot compared to the record-shattering 3,207 shots allowed last season. Yeah, I don't think that record is going to get broken anytime soon. I don't know if it'll ever get broken. 3,207 shots allowed is a lot. The Ducks allowed 2,666, which is still above league average. And it does seem like a lot, but I'll get to why it wasn't that bad later on. I'm going to go, actually, I'm going to go with this number next. 8. That's the number of times the Ducks allowed 40-plus shots in a game this season. Only 8. I don't know about you, but that's a major improvement compared to the 40 times this occurred last season. Yeah, it happened 40 times last year, only 8 this past season. I call that a big improvement. Now, part of that is the Ducks are getting into lanes and blocking more shots, making it somewhat easier on the goalies, which goes into this number that I was alluding to. 1,343. That's the number of blocked shots the Ducks had this season. In fact, the Ducks were 12th in the National Hockey League in blocked shots this season. That's a pretty significant improvement considering that it was a far cry from last season. That's almost a 200 blocks improvement. I would consider that pretty significant. Now, look, the Ducks are beginning to buy into playing better team defense. They are. Some of you might want to disagree with me on that, but they are playing somewhat better team defense than they were last season. Maybe not so much after the trade deadline, but there was a solid maybe 3 months where the defense was actually playing some pretty competent hockey. Certainly during that 6-game winning streak, and certainly there was a lot of 1-goal games where the defense was giving their goalies a chance. So for that, I would call that an improvement, and I would call that trying to buy into better team defense, trying to buy into this new Cronin-led system. And at least they're trying to give Dostal and Gibby some kind of break. You notice that I haven't mentioned the taser as much this year as I did last year. Now, there were certainly games where I said, give Gibby the effing taser already. I said that a lot. But it's not as bad as last year. It's not. All right. We're going to go into some more numbers, some more offensive numbers, most of which are not good, after the first intermission. Stay locked in. Now a brief word from FanDuel, that is right. It's playoff time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose if you're in an area that can do that. Bet on everything from slap shots to slam dunks. Yeah, all on an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. There's also same game parlays as well, so check those out. So what are you waiting for? Visit fanduel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and the official sports betting partner of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please, folks, gamble responsibly. We're also brought to you by the Game Time app, which is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier, particularly if you're a Clippers fan. Lakers, not so much. But there are killer last-minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, lowest price guarantees. They take the guesswork out of buying tickets. And you can pick any specific games or matchups that you'd love to attend. You could also check out the last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, and it just takes 2 taps. Just 1 tap, 2 taps, boom, you are done. You've got your tickets. You are on your way to the game. You could save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And now let's talk about some more numbers. I've got some more numbers to give you. But before I get into that, I just want to briefly talk about some of those improvements once again. Now, I'm not trying to be too positive here, but I am at least trying to be honest. I say this all the time. If nothing else, I'm honest. I am honest about the fact that the Ducks were still not the best team. They still weren't good. I will be honest with the fact that Greg Cronin has gotten off to a not so good start, and there's already fans trying to give him the ouster after 1 season. And I said this months ago. Patience. Patience is going to be very key in this rebuild. This is still a rebuild, folks. It is going to take time. It just is. That being said, I'm going to give a positive number here. 37. That's the number of goals scored by Frank Vetrano. Inarticulate Italian noises. Yay. That led the team. This is the first time someone has scored 35 plus goals since Troy Terry 2 years ago. Oh, and speaking of Troy Terry, here's a number. 34. That's the number of assists for Troy Terry, which is tied for the team lead with Cam Fowler. Speaking of Cam Fowler, you ready for this? 3, 5, and 6. Oh, wait a minute. There's 3 numbers there? What the fresh hell is this? Why are you giving 3 numbers? There's a reason for that. All right. What the hell? There it is. This is from hockeystatcards.com, and this is pretty hideous. That's the placements of worst individual game scores on the Hockey Stat Cards website. Yes, you heard that right. Cam Fowler had 3 of the 6 worst games in the entire NHL this season. Oh, and by the way, I'm just going to go down this list because it is visual, but I'm just going to say it as well. 3rd worst game, Cam Fowler, New Year's Eve, -7.83. 5th worst, November 26th, -7.28. 6th worst, -7.24, February 21st. But look who else is on this list. Henry Thrun, top on this list, a -8.86, who is a former Ducks prospect. Henry Thrun played for Harvard. Some of you may have seen him play with Harvard when we had that Harvard versus Arizona State game. This was a few years ago. This game took place at 5 Points Arena. So yeah, Henry Thrun, former Ducks prospect, top on that list. And look at that. Look who's 4th. Jamie Drysdale, as a member of the Philadelphia Flyers, -7.41. Those games all happened after those 3 games. That meant that for about a month, Cam Fowler had 3 of the 4 worst scores out of anyone in the National Hockey League. So stick taps to Henry Thrun and Jamie Drysdale for making Cam Fowler look somewhat better. I'm only joking, folks. You should know when I'm joking. And I am. Take this one off for size. It gets worse. 17.9. That's the power play percentage, good enough for 25th in the league. Ouch. Not that good. But I'll give you some really bad stats right now. You ready for this? You ready? I don't think you're ready for this, folks. So just be prepared. Those of you that have kids in the room, you might want to have them turn away because this is going to get very ugly. For those of you that do not like really bad numbers, cover your ears, close your eyes, turn away. Okay, this is where it gets really bad. 72.4%. That's the penalty kill percentage. Believe it or not, that's a slight improvement from last season's 72.1%, if you can believe that. However, this is still the second worst in the NHL behind the New York Islanders' 71.5%. This is now the 17th worst single season penalty kill of all time. Yeah, you heard that right. And I'm just going to talk about this for a minute before I get into more numbers. This year's trade deadline, the Ducks gave away, I thought, 2 of their most important players to the Edmonton Oilers. They traded away Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick. Hopefully that results in a good pick for the Ducks this year. And when you lose 2 of your best penalty killers, Henrique and Carrick, who both had above 50% faceoffs, by the way, and who both had 2 shorthanded goals this season before the trade, you knew you were going to give up something really big, and you knew that, I'm not going to say the tank was on, but you knew that it was going to be a long 21 games. Before the trade, only Frank Vatrano and Sam Carrick had played in all 61 games up to that point. So you knew it was going to get bad. And I had to look. Here's an ugly, ugly number. 63.5%. That's the Ducks' penalty kill percentage after the trade to the Oilers. 63.5% PK. That is by far the worst in the NHL after March 6th. By far, it is the worst PK in that time span, and it's not even close. I mean, it didn't help that they took a bajillion penalties, which goes into our next couple of ugly numbers. 31. In that time frame, they allowed 31 power play goals. The next highest was the Toronto Maple Leafs with 18, because I got to dunk on Toronto at least once on this Season by the Numbers podcast. I have to dunk on them once. I mean, yes, we could dunk on them that they're about to be eliminated, but no, they allowed 18 power play goals in that span. That was second to the Ducks' 31. For reference, the Ducks were shorthanded in less minutes than the Florida Panthers, who just advanced to the second round. But they allowed far fewer goals, 13, with a much better PK percentage, 84.0%. Way better. This number I hate. 85. I alluded to this at the start. 85 is the number of times the Ducks were shorthanded in that 21 game span. That's an average of just over 4 penalties per game. WTF. And that includes, by the way, the 10 opportunities they gave to the Seattle Kraken in one game. Yeah, remember that? The 10 chances they gave Seattle, they got burned on that one. Gosh, 85 times they were shorthanded in only 21 games. That is ridiculous. If the Ducks had a better PK, it would seem better, but they don't. Their PK got way worse without Rico and without Sam Carrick. That took away two of their best penalty killers. That took away any threat of having effective shorthanded goal breakouts in a consistent space. And oh, by the way, their face-off percentages when they were on the PK were dreadful. So all of that was bad after the trade deadline. So for those of you that thought the last month and a half was long, it was. It really was. And those are some of the numbers to back that up. We're going to head into the second intermission right now. I will give some final numbers on this Ducks season by the numbers. We'll get to those on the other side. And now a brief word from Monopoly Go. Now, I'm pretty competitive, and I like Monopoly Go because you can team up with friends for timed tournaments, but you could also take out other boards. And the more you win, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, like the new dog one, and just hilarious emojis for taunting friends and smashing their buildings. We smash it with the hammer! Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. Can you feel it? Oh, I feel it. A ton include their own unique mini games, like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go! So get off the bench and go download it now on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, or Tlopin. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez. I hated those last numbers so much. Just for reference, shorthanded time on ice for the Panthers in that period was 136 minutes. For the Ducks, 125 minutes. Yes, it really was that bad. But I'm going to try to end on a positive note here. How about this number? 128. That's the number of penalty minutes for Radko Gudas, the team leader. He also led the team with blocked shots at 154. Also, 232. That's the number of hits for the player that teammates call the Butcher. Yeah, 232. That's a lot of hits, folks. At least there's some physicality here. At least there's some semblance of playing a good physical game. So hooray for that. All right. Now there is a lot of hope for next season. I think there is. And I'm going to be the optimistic one here, folks. Let me have that. Let me have the optimism, please. 304. I alluded to this number also at the start. That is the number of man games lost by the Anaheim Ducks due to injury. That's the 6th most in the National Hockey League. And here's some players of note that missed a good chunk of games. Trevor Zegras lost 51 games. Jamie Drysdale lost 29 when he was still a member of the Ducks. Minty lost 19. Leo lost 20. Max Jones, he lost 27. Alex Killorn lost 19. Oh. These two were bad. Lundestrom lost 36 games. And Brock McGinn, remember Brock McGinn? He lost 46 games. Yeah, those are some good players. I mean, Mason McTavish missed a few games as well. There was a lot of injured players pretty much all season long. There was only a handful of games when the top 6 players actually played together in the same game. There was no time to get used to each other. There was no time for players to get into some kind of rhythm. It just never happened this season because everyone got hurt. Part of that is Z and JD missing time in the preseason. It took them a while to get warmed up. They missed because they were getting their contracts worked out, so that's part of it. The Killorn lost games really suck. Z missing that many games also really sucks. I did not like seeing Mintyukov and Leo Carlsson missing so many games when they're still so young. And that does not include, by the way, that does not include the quote-unquote load management games where Leo Carlsson didn't play after a certain amount of days. So it does not include that. But here's a couple more numbers to give a little bit of hope. 33,005,833. That's the projected cap space going into this offseason according to Cap Friendly. They need to spend at least $9 million just to get above the expected cap floor this offseason. And once again, just like last year, they have the money to spend. They have pieces there, but there's also some players that they can get. I already saw the tweets earlier. Steven Stamkos, you are an Anaheim Duck. Yes, Steven Stamkos still is very good. It's going to cost a pretty penny. A lot of teams are going to go after him. Hey, at least the Ducks have the money to spend, right? So they may as well spend it. They may as well, right? I will give this last number to give just a smidgen of hope. 11.5. That's the chances to land Macklin Celebrini with the number 1 pick in this year's draft. The draft lottery is in about a week, May 7th. It should be around 3, 4, 5 o'clock Pacific time. I'm very hopeful that the Ducks can for once, move up in the draft lottery. They have never moved up. Every time there's been a draft lottery, they've moved down. Not every time, but almost every time they've had a chance to get a top pick, they've moved down. Last year, they could have had number 1. They moved down to number 2. How about the Sidney Crosby year? Yeah, there's that one as well. How about moving? I mean, they've just moved down time and time and time again. And it just happens so often that I'm used to it. And yes, I know there's Ducks fans saying, oh, the fix isn't. No, you know what? Let me have just a smidgen of hope. There is still an 11.5% chance. You never know. They can get it. And I just did the Tankathon Draft Lottery Simulator. First shot out, Anaheim moves up 2 spots. Chicago is 2. San Jose moves down to 3. I just did that. In fact, you know what? I'll just show you right now. Bam, there it is. Anaheim, number 1. Wouldn't that be something, folks? All right, we're going to end on that positive note. And, you know, we've got a long summer ahead of us, but there's a lot of movement that could take place. So make sure you're tuned into episodes of Locked On Anaheim Ducks. There will be more off-season content coming up very soon, including former Ducks in the playoffs, goals by the numbers, and we'll have at least 1 guest this week, maybe 2. Still working on that, but we'll see. In the meantime, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Don't forget this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, among others. You could follow me on Twitter at StimpyJD. The show's Twitter's at LO_Ducks. You could email me at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. The mailbag is open. And once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason J.D. Hernandez saying have a great rest of the day. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together.